I'm Katie. I'm in Fozen's 335 Rhetoric and Writing class, and this is
Ariel, and we are going to do a rhetorical analysis on Gamergate and how that figures into Michael Warner's Publics and Counterpublics, and also how it figures into the idea of the rhetorical situation as discussed by Bitzer and Bats.
So Gamergate was a controversy in the summer of 2014 where game developer Zoe Quinn published a popular game called Depression Quest, and she came under fire for the game's high acclaim, blamed for her boyfriend's job at Kotaku, a popular gaming journalism website and magazine.
So it was kind of a cultural war in the what we would call the gaming public. Now we're arguing that the gaming public used to be a gaming counterpublic. You can think of the traditional gamer in the sense, and you think of somebody like usually the white nerdy male who was made fun of in the general public for not being a man enough, but who defined himself by being in this gaming counterpublic. Everybody's a gamer now, so it's not even a counterpublic anymore, it's just a regular public. But the issue is, as more and more people identify themselves as part of the gaming public, the people who are part of that original counterpublic resent that it is being pulled into a public, and they are doing a kind of gatekeeping, saying, well, you're not really a gamer, you don't count, I'm a real gamer. And the problem with that behavior is really exemplified in Gamergate, like with
popular critic Anita Sarkeesian came under fire for controversial statements about the sexualization of women in games, like popular games like Grand Theft Auto, where you could pick up a prostitute and then kill her for fun. Zoe Quinn, the original developer, came under fire for her popular game Depression Quest. Her boyfriend was subject to termination from his job at Kotaku because people assumed that she had only published a popular game because of her relationship with the journalist. This begs the question of ethics in journalism, which we feel that the Gamergate hashtag on Twitter kind of took up in flames, where people started using ethics in journalism as a soapbox to publish their threats against women in the industry, as developers, as journalists, as players.
The validity of these questions, even though they were good, they were, questions that I think people have a right to ask as a consumer. It's an issue of kairos. Like, as soon as people start sending death threats, as soon as people send death threats in such a number that actual people are being forced out of their homes, game journalism ethics don't really matter anymore. It's not the time to push, oh, this person is potentially an unethical journalist when that person is receiving death threats. We need to immediately step back and say, no, the death threats are wrong, and perhaps once those stop and the situation normalizes for everyone, then maybe we can bring that question back up again.
They are all fans. They are all going to love what they love and hate what they hate. But it's not like the internet is kind of acting like we didn't know people might be influenced by things. But every time you post something like, I like Call of Duty fanboy, like everybody says you're biased already. Like, you've been saying it forever and you'll continue to say it forever, regardless of what comes out.
As of 2014, the question was, is it ethical to threaten people out of their homes? And the answer is no. Maybe later you can bring up the concept of, did Zoe Quinn really publish a popular game, or did she sleep with a journalist to get popular reviews? That's the question to ask maybe 6 months later.
So Michael Warner says that the public is a kind of social totality, a space of discourse organized by nothing other than discourse itself. It is autotelic. It exists only as the end for which books are published, shows broadcast, websites posted, speeches delivered, opinions produced. It exists by virtue of being addressed. So basically, a public exists by virtue of you paying attention to it. So basically, you're connected as a public just by knowing about it. Warner claims that there are also counterpublics, which are publics whose members are not merely a subset of the public, but constituted through a conflictual relation to the dominant public. So members of a counterpublic are socially marked by their participation in the discourse. Participation in such a public is one of the ways by which its members' identities are formed and transformed. A hierarchy or stigma is the assumed background of practice. One enters at one's own risk. So a counterpublic would be something where you are marked by your participation in it. So what we're arguing here is that the gaming public was once a counterpublic, and it was full of the traditional idea of just nerdy dudes, and nerdy dudes who were castigated by the general public for being nerdy and for not being the kind of guy that patriarchy said that they should be. And these guys found comfort in being a member of a counterpublic that valued them for who they were. But over the years, as gaming has become more popular, it's not really a counterpublic anymore. You can ask a lot of people on campus, are you a gamer? And they'll say, well, yeah, of course, because everybody our age usually plays some kind of game. And the problem with that is that certain people who fit that old definition, or even people who don't, feel like they have the right to tell people whether they do or do not qualify as a gamer. And this is sort of resulting in aggressive behavior known as gatekeeping. So this gaming public now has warring counterpublics within itself. And we really see how these counterpublics grind against each other in a way that can become incredibly problematic with the issue of Gamergate. And this kind of begs the question of a counterpublic that became a public and is now splitting into its own counterpublics. Does the very nature of publics and counterpublics require that there be a victimized minority group, or a minority group that is in conflict with the majority?
And take them away, so we have to play your non-violent games, right?
No, that's not true.
It's a culture war. It's a subculture war.
Now, a lot of gamers are also developers and journalists and animators, and they're also women. I mean, we beg the question, is there going to be a marginalized group? Who's the next marginalized group after women are given equality in the gaming industry? And I think that our analysis really sheds light on the situation, the publics, all of the different pieces at work here.